Today's topic is Sonic the Hedgehog. What is my history with Sonic the Hedgehog? So, the first Sonic game I remember playing was Sonic Adventure. I distinctly remember one of my first, video game memories is I was playing Sonic Adventure DX on the GameCube on my parents' TV in the living room. And I remember for whatever reason, the TV volume was set to 100. It goes from 0 all the way up to 100. And it was set up for 100 for, whatever reason. And most TVs that have volumes that go up like that, like my TV right now, it can go up to 100, but it's set at 17 right now. And that's comfortable for me. So imagine what 100 would be like. And if you know Sonic Adventure DX, maybe the first game, the original Dreamcast game as well, after the intro, there's this guitar riff, it's that played at 100% volume. That was the loudest thing I think I'd ever heard. Maybe I'll play it right now just so you can hear what it's like. And that's whatever you just heard. That's at a normalized volume, a normal human listenable volume. So imagine that at ear blasting volume. Well, regardless, that's one of my first video game memories. I don't know how old I was, but there's probably some video game memories I have before that, but that just sticks with me so vividly as a stupid thing. Why did I do that? So Sonic has been with me for a long time in my life. And throughout the GameCube era, I was really into Sonic. I played Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog. Were there any other Sonic games in the GameCube? Sonic Riders, I played that. I played a lot of Sonic games. There was there was Sonic Mega Collection and Sonic Gems Collection. But I never really got into the 2D games. Sonic Mega Collection was a collection of older Sonic games, before the Dreamcast era. And Sonic Gems had some older-ish games from I don't know a lot of my Sega console stuff. What was Sonic R on? Was that on the... Sonic R wasn't on the Dreamcast. It must have been on the Saturn or something. The Genesis games are a big part of what Sonic is, and I never really got into them when I was younger. They always felt too difficult. I was used to playing Mario. What was my experience to Mario games back then? I played Super Mario Sunshine, but did I play a lot of the 2D games? I guess I played... Yeah, I had the Super Mario... What were they called? The ports of Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World. I all played that on the Game Boy. And that was more my pace. Sonic felt difficult. It was always this thing I'm running into spikes, running off a cliff, jumping into enemies I shouldn't. It was just it felt very difficult. And maybe if I had played it more, I would have been able to roll with the punches, but it didn't stick with me for whatever reason. Sometime down the line I got a Wii, and I kind of hopped off the Sonic bandwagon at that point. Before then, I was very much ride or die Sonic. Sonic Adventure, Sonic Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog I was into. Sonic Riders, that was a weird spin-off, but I liked that a lot. But when it came to Sonic and the Secret Rings, Sonic and the Black Knight, that was when I was I really do not care what they're doing with Sonic. And, reflecting on that, reflecting all of what Sonic has even become these days, I think I like the idea of Sonic more than any one particular game. So, past Sonic and the Secret Rings, that was the last one I really remember getting into. Or, getting. I was this is not what I want. Sonic Colors came out sometime after that. I don't know how long, what year, any of that. Maybe 2011. I'm just throwing out a random year. I have no idea. But Sonic Colors kind of... No, Sonic Unleashed. Didn't that start the, boost formula? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think Sonic Unleashed did cement the boost formula, because I remember there was this disparity between like this beat 'em up section and these sections where you're like running really fast along a narrow path and there's this huge landscape. I remember people were like, oh, the daytime levels are cool, but the Werehog levels are like, what? What is this? I remember that. So that must have been right after when I stopped paying attention. Because what was that game called? Sonic Unleashed. I said it already. Sonic Unleashed, it felt like that era of like, what are they doing with Sonic? Why does he go back in time? Why is he a knight in this game? Why is he a werewolf, werehog thing? It just felt like they had no idea what they were doing, or just trying all kinds of stuff to see what sticks. But Sonic Unleashed, that was the beginning of like, oh, we have this formula that really, really works. I mean, I call them the boost formula because it's like, that's what most people call it. It's like this, it's this gameplay where it's like a narrow path. Well, it's not necessarily a narrow path, but there's like it's a very linear level. And you press X or square to boost. I didn't really like those. I'll talk a little bit about why later and what I prefer, but for now I'll just leave it. I didn't like those types of games. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Genesis games either. Even now, I'm still not a huge fan. I've kind of grown to appreciate it a bit more, but I'm still not one to like, oh, I love Sonic 2 or 3. I don't care. And I have no real interest in replaying the ones I grew up with. You know, I feel like it's very common for people to say like, oh, Sonic sucks these days. Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are where it's at. But I don't care about playing those either. I replayed a little bit of Sonic Adventure 1 when I was doing my video game world tour of Sonic Adventure. And I appreciate it. Like, I could see what I liked in it. But it's not my thing anymore. And I don't know why. It just comes back to the idea. I like the idea of Sonic more than any one game. Like, I liked Sonic Adventure back then, and that got me hooked on the character. And in retrospect, I kind of don't like where they took Sonic. Like, in my personal opinion, classic Sonic he's just cool. His design, it's like slick and aerodynamic. His attitude, his attitude is cool, but it's not too in your face about it. I feel like later Sonic games, they really leaned into him being like a wisecracking, I don't even know what you'd call it. He's just this wisecracking dude I feel like he comes off as trying to be cool. But old Sonic, I'm thinking specifically of like the Sonic CD intro animation. He was just cool. He didn't have to try to be cool, he just was. Maybe that's just some like projecting or whatever what I think of my preference. But that version of Sonic, that era, has stuck with me much more than anything they've tried post Sonic Adventure, I guess, or post Sonic CD rather. Adventure was kind of like where it started to go off the rails for me, at least in retrospect of what I like about Sonic as a character these days. And a lot of that comes down to, you know, the character, but also the world. I'm thinking about the world in the original Sonic games on the Genesis. They were a lot more fantastical. You know, you look at Green Hill Zone, and it's like, you've never seen anything like this in real life. The ground has this, like, checkerboard pattern, I think. The grass is, like, super stylized. These robots are crazy, and everything's it's out of this world. And Sonic Adventure is literally of this world. I guess maybe I'm not giving that game enough credit. They did take artistic liberties to make it not just, you know, a plain old Earth in a lot of ways. Like, what was that one stage? Windy Valley, I think that was the name. That's kind of like a fantastical, classic-like Sonic stage where there's, like, floating bridges and floating platforms and stuff you can run across. But I'm more so thinking about, like, what was the opening beach called in Sonic Adventure? I can't remember. Emerald Coast? Emerald Coast feels very like Sonic's just running around on a beach. And I guess to some degree it's fantastical where there's like loop-de-loops and, you know, this weird floating platform in the middle of an ocean that you run across and a whale jumps over and breaks it. It's a heightened version of our world. In retrospect, I very much prefer the just straight up like fantasy version of, you know, Green Hill Zone. What was that? What was that plant called in Chemical Plant Zone? I can't remember. I guess I'm a fake Sonic fan. But it's like the second stage or world in Sonic 2? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess I can't remember a lot about. Like I said, I don't have this huge nostalgic connection to the Genesis games. But I think just on like on a surface level, I prefer that much more. I guess to get at the core of why I like classic Sonic, you know, if we're gonna get beyond the aesthetic choices of like him and the world, and the mechanics of classic Sonic, going fast is a reward, not the baseline. I feel like that is so key to what Sonic is, to what he started out as. Going fast is the baseline in Sonic games. You know, there will be a stage will start out with a straight and narrow path, and you hit X, and you speed across it like there's nobody's business. But to me, the spectacle there isn't fun. You know, part of why people liked Sonic Unleashed, I think, maybe I wasn't into the fandom at that time. I guess I'm still not, but you know, I haven't watched a lot of like YouTube videos talking about Sonic Unleashed or whatever, but I feel like why people liked it is that there's so much stage to go through. And when there's so much like level space, you know, going fast in a very big level feels much more, you have a lot more time to enjoy going fast in a big environment compared to a small environment. So when there's these long winding paths and you're boosting around, you're like, wow, I am Sonic, I'm going fast. This is Sonic the Hedgehog. This is what I like. The original games felt like there was a skill to going fast. I played Sonic Origins when that came out recently. I'd played a little bit of 1, 2, and CD and all that before. I maybe even finished them at some point with like a ROM hack or something. But in Sonic Origins, I beat it. This was like a couple months ago, whenever it came out. There's a lot of stages where it's hard, where there's like barriers put up, and you have to know they're coming to be able to react to them before you even see them. Now, to some people, that might be kind of like how do I describe it? It's like an annoying feature where it's like, oh, I didn't know about it coming. How should I have known beforehand? Like it's like punishing first-time players. And I think there's some kind of truth to that. It's like, I know there's some Sonic stages where there's like, you're going straight along and then there's just a spike right in the middle. So there's like loop-de-loops, and you're just holding right, and then there's a spike pointing right at you and you run into it. Or a spring, that's more likely. The spring will bounce you back and you'll go right back the path you came down. That's annoying. I remember that was in one of the first stages of one of the games. Sonic 1 or 2. It's like a bunch of loop-de-loops, and then there's a spring at the very end of that path that'll bounce you right back. I think it's cool that it's annoying. It's like funny, almost. I was like, oh, haha, you got me. But next time I come through the stage, I'm going to jump at just the right time, so I don't do that and I go speeding off into the next environmental challenge or whatever. Now, granted, I haven't played a lot of modern Sonic games. Like, I definitely haven't played Frontiers. That's not even out yet. I want to get this video out before Frontiers comes out, just to have my opinions in the world untainted before this, It seems like Frontiers is going to really, like, change what Sonic is. So I want to get this out there just to have my opinions before I play it or whatever. I'm not a fan of the direction, really. I talked about the world earlier. And Sonic Frontiers world feels like the exact opposite of what I want out of a Sonic world. There's the island the game takes place on, like the first island. They showed it off in the trailers and all that. People have described it as looking like a Phantasy Star Online 2 stage. Because, ostensibly, Sonic Frontiers uses the Phantasy Star Online 2 engine. And it just doesn't look like a Sonic world to me. It's not what I want Sonic to be. I want to see a Sonic game. A modern 3D open world Sonic game. Not even open world necessarily, but just like 3D Sonic game in the style of the Genesis games. With that, like, checkerboard grass, crazy loop-de-loops. What are the bots called? I forget what they're called. Oh, like Crab Robot and the bats, whatever. I want to see the Genesis games, that art style in 3D. And I feel like Sonic hasn't really done that. It's been so many years. So many years. And the only time I've seen him lean into that, like, world design is the Sonic Adventure 2 bonus stage where you play Green Hill Zone. I guess I kind of forgot about Lost World. Lost World kind of leaned into that stuff. I guess it more than kinda. Again, that's not another Sonic game I've played, but, you know, I've seen gameplay of it, and it really does take inspiration from, like, the Genesis games, in terms of style. But it was like this weird Mario Galaxy inspired thing. It's like, why even do this? The Lost World came out on the Wii U, not the Wii. Why was that? Why did they make that? I know one, like, criticism of that game is that he's very slow. Is it so hard to merge this classic world design, this world style, with a fast-paced Sonic? I don't know. I feel like it's not. I don't know why. I don't know why Sonic Team hasn't made, like, a level-based 3D Sonic game that's in the style of the Genesis games. Like, Sonic Frontiers, again, I haven't played it, and I don't know what the later worlds look like. But with what they've shown off, I would be so much more into this game if it had that, like, cartoon style where there's Green Hill Zone, where there's Marble Plant Zone. Oh god, I don't remember the names. Marble Hill? Whatever. I think it would look it would look like a Sonic game. In this, you know, it has Sonic, and there's some, like, Sonic parts to it with, like, rails and springs. It doesn't look like a Sonic game. And some people might have argued Sonic Adventure doesn't look like a Sonic game. And maybe I'm just, like, rationalizing here, but it felt like that, like, adhered to a cartoony art style. Maybe that's just a cope on my part. Sonic Adventure is a very far cry from the original Genesis games. But I just want to see him go back. Take the art style back to what people liked. And let's see how that goes. And something I'm glad that happened is fan games. Fan games really capitalize on that older art style. I've seen so many fan games that put, you know, classic Sonic, you know, with his Genesis proportions, into a 3D Green Hill Zone, and it's open world. That would be the dream for me. Sonic in an open world, but with that old art style. Something I feel like, it just blows my mind that Sega hasn't done this. They haven't focused a Sonic game on momentum. Like, momentum is the thing when going fast. You know, to me, as I said earlier, I want speed to be a reward, not just the baseline. Like, I want to feel like Sonic. And feeling like Sonic to me, you know, if I were just put into Sonic's shoes, if I were transported into his brain and I was forced to, you know, go along some crazy environment really fast, it would be hard for me. I would have to learn what it's like, get a grip with the world, and get a grip with, you know, if I'm going back to, like, the game, get a grip with the controls. But after a while, after, you know, a couple hours, dozen hours, maybe even 100 hours, I would be very, very good at it. I'd be very good at, you know, doing exactly giving the exact inputs to go through the stage as fast as I can. And I'll try to put some, for this section, I'll put some footage of some Sonic fan game that I'm thinking of, where it's like Green Hill Zone or whatever zone, but it's like an open world. And you can see there's like hills, and you have to manage your momentum. And that just, it blows my mind that Sega hasn't done this. Sonic should be just fun to move around in a sandbox. And that's effectively what these fan games are. It's just a sandbox to enjoy this, like, experimental movement. You know, Mario 64, it's fun to play with Mario in the castle courtyard. There's no objectives there, but he's just fun to play around with. You know, you dive jump over here, you do some long jumps, you do a side flip. It's fun to just play around. Is Sonic fun to play around with in Sonic Forces? I don't think Sonic's fun to play around with in Sonic Forces. Admittedly, I haven't played it. Played Sonic Generations, which is kind of like a similar, going for a similar playstyle. And he's not, the fun of Sonic Generations, Sonic Colors, Sonic whatever, it comes from the environments that you're put into. Okay, I'm back. There was some landscaping stuff got too loud, but where was I? I was talking about momentum. So I think the best games start out when they're fun to play in a vacuum. You know, you see those, I mentioned Super Mario Sunshine earlier. I remember there was like a debug room leaked, or like a test room. I don't remember what they're called exactly, but it's just like a plain room where the developers could test out all the like environments that Mario would be used in. So there's like water to test swimming, and like walls for wall kicking or something. I don't know the specifics of this room, but it's just basically just like a plain room with like little set pieces to play around with the mechanics. And a character should be fun to play in one of those. And I just want Sonic to be enjoyable to play in one of those rooms. Sonic, for so many years, it hasn't, like Adventure, he was close to being that, but I want to see a truly momentum-based Sonic where you really have to take momentum into account. You know, you roll down a hill, and if you go into the ball form at the wrong time, you won't gain as much speed. But if you do it at the right time, you'll get a lot of speed, and maybe there's a ramp at the end, and if you hit that ramp, you'll go flying over so many obstacles. And there's skill involved in that, skill in learning the timing in which to go into ball form, or when to go out and when to jump at the end of a ramp. That's what I want. That's what I want. And fan games have kind of been catering to that, but I want to see what could a fully developed AAA Sonic game in that style look like? Like an open world with collectibles, kind of like a Mario Odyssey in a way. Except with, you know, huge worlds. Because I feel like the environments in Mario Odyssey are too small for a Sonic game. So I feel like if they could make those bigger, but only have like 3 or so, that'd be cool. I mean, seems like maybe that's what they're doing with Frontiers. I haven't been paying too much attention to it. My whole problem with Frontiers is basically the aesthetic. So, but maybe the gameplay will satisfy me. Which leads us to the question of the minute, the hour, the decade. What is going on with Sonic Team? Sonic Team has been, I don't know what they've been doing. I don't think they know what they've been doing either. Do they need to be replaced? It seems like they fundamentally don't know what to do with Sonic. He's this character, and they've been trying out stuff since Adventure. I feel like he hasn't had a strong identity since then. There's so many like mechanics and gimmicks and aesthetics that they've tried to put him into, but it feels like none have really stuck. I don't know what to make of it. The fact that they've tried so many different world styles, and none of them feel like Sonic to me. Well, is that fair to say? Maybe just my perception of Sonic is different from what most other people like. Like, I want a certain type of Sonic. I'm not a fan of that modern Sonic. I think he's a stronger character in his classic form. But am I part of the target demographic these days? I don't think so. You know, Sonic, it feels like he's directed towards kids. He's like that. He's a very, thinking like to Colors and stuff like that, where he's like bouncing off Tails and they're making silly jokes at Eggman. It feels like a very directed at kids, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You know, I was a kid and I appreciated Sonic Adventure, but it didn't feel like it was, I don't know. Maybe it's just a preference thing. I might have outgrown Sonic, you know? It feels weird to say it's like a kid thing these days. I don't think Sonic Frontiers is going to have a lot of that. Sonic Force is really focused on when it came to the story stuff. It's like, oh, here's all Sonic's friends. Here's Knuckles. Here's Rouge. Here's Tails. And blah, blah, blah. Every one of the characters. The Chaotix guys. And they're all saying random quirky stuff. But it seems like there's not going to be a lot of Sonic's friends in Frontiers. I'm pretty sure Amy's in there somewhere. But I genuinely don't know if they've shown off any of the other characters other than Sonic. And that's it. None of his, like, friends. I kind of think that's where Sonic is at its best. You know, I really like the, where he's not like a joke delivery machine. He's just there to complete an objective. He's here to save Amy or defeat Robotnik. He's not making jokes or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I just feel like I wrote this down and I was like, well, maybe I'll have a point here, but now that I'm talking it out, it feels like I'm just... Is it me who's wrong? No, it's the kids who are wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not the part of the target demographic anymore, and that's fine. Yeah. Well, we'll see how my opinion changes when Frontiers comes out. I don't know if I'm going to get it on release day. I was thinking about requesting a review copy for the channel and potentially make a video on it. I think it'd be cool to do a tour of the islands in the game, but I have no idea how to go about doing that. It seems like a nightmare. Trying to figure out how to request press copies or whatever. And I don't know if I want to spend $60 on Sonic Frontiers. I don't know. I'll check it out down the line. Maybe I'll get it at release. I don't know. Still thinking about it. I hope it succeeds. I'd very much like to make another rambling about on Sonic Frontiers sometime down the line where I can say all the reservations I had about, like, the story, the gameplay, the world. I'd love to be able to say I was wrong, but Sonic Team, they don't give me I don't have a lot of hope for them. You know, they've been on this path for so many years. You know, they have games people like. You know, Colors, Generations. But then they have Sonic Forces. And it's like, they make that and it's like, do they understand what makes Sonic good? I don't know. I went through when I was writing my notes, I was like, okay, who is behind Sonic games? Who's like directing them? Because it feels like it has to be, there's someone in charge who doesn't know what Sonic is. Morio Kishimoto has been a director since Sonic Lost World. There's maybe been like 4 games or so, I don't know exactly. And Takashi Iizuka has been producing for a long time. So is it either of those people? Do they just not know what to do with Sonic and they need some fresh eyes into the series? You know, Sonic Mania was so good. I remember watching the 30th anniversary trailer or live stream where it was like a complete mess. Like the audio was glitching out. There was like a buzzing. There was no audio. I watched that live with some friends and that was the funniest shit ever. But because it felt perfectly, it embodied Sonic. It just felt like a mess. Nothing, they didn't know what was going on. And then they show Sonic Mania, and it's like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Do they know what they're doing? They realize, oh, we don't have to make every Sonic game. We can we can hire some people. And you know what? We'll hire some fans that made great fan games. We'll hire them. And they'll make a brand new game, and it'll be amazing. And that was the last we saw of that good side of Sonic, I feel like. Mania and Forces came out around the same time-ish. They were kind of, I think they kind of tied into each other in like terms of the marketing. And I remember it's like, this is a new start for Sonic, and it wasn't. It wasn't. It was an anomaly. And they put out Sonic Origins, and they kind of worked with, was it Headcanon Studios? They did the work on Mania. And there were just so many technical problems with that game, so many like weird... It was, oh my gosh. It's just so frustrating. Sonic has potential. Even though I said I like the idea of Sonic more than the games themselves. Like, those older games deserve better. Sonic deserves better games. He deserves to be in a game where that people love. And it's so surprising that the fandom has stuck with Sonic throughout the decades. I think those people are in a similar position. They just like the character more than the games. It's like the feeling they get when they, you know, look at fan art of the character or watch fan animations. It reminds them of, you know, the games themselves might not be so good, but the creators of Sonic, they had something special back in the day. And that still resonates with people despite the current state of the character. And, you know, I just hope that the games themselves can live up to the reputation of the character himself. Yeah. I think I'll leave it at that. If you guys have any suggestions for a future rambling video, leave it in the comments. Is that it? Yeah. See you next time. Thanks for watching.